Amen. All right. We don't have a lot of time for Q&A here because we do have supper at 6, and it's now 5:30. So we'll go ahead and have hands go up for the microphone. Nate got his hand up real quick. So do we go all the way to the back? Get that to Nate.
Prior to coming to MTOI and under your teachings, Rabbi, I was informed at one point, don't eat salt when you go to certain people's houses, and if you go to your parents' house, don't eat salt. From the teaching today, it sounds like that maybe not at all what they learned something and only took a partial understanding of that and tried to teach something. Could
Correct.
you clarify that?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is again when you have the minimally informed, probably Gentile, like Nate just said, it was probably a Gentile who told him these things, coming into a little bit of Hebrew Torah understanding. They heard about salt being related to covenant. It doesn't mean just because you have salt, you've made a covenant. Okay? The salt was used in a covenant by the exchange of salt in pouches. The salt that was put on the offerings was a reminder of a covenant. It wasn't the creating of one. So when we put salt on our bread with the kiddush and hamotzi, we're not making a covenant. It's to remind us that we have a covenant. And so when you go to somebody's house and you put salt on your food, you're doing it probably because the person made flavorless food. You know me, I like to beat around the bush and not get right to it. But in my subtlety, and you sit there, some of you are smart enough to go, I don't want to ask for too much and see them shake too much because they're going to know I think their food has no taste. Because when they ask for the salt and you're sitting there and you're talking, you're salting it and you're salting it and you're salting, and they're like, what's the matter? Doesn't have any flavor? No, I'm just addicted to salt. It's okay. Mr. David Botwa Grease.
Well, you were just quoting from Job, actually. He says, is tasteless food eaten without salt? So you're right on point. The comment I wanted to make, and you hinted it at, and you teach this all the time, speaking about, especially in the Heart of the Matter series, the V'ahavta, and why we have to completely immerse ourselves when we're in the house, when we rise up, lie down, is because if we falter in one of those aspects, it's really easy for us to slip up. And so you explain and expound on that verse, the fact that all of those pieces have to be in order, and then connected to the end of Mark chapter 9 when it says, well, if your eye causes you to stumble, or if your hand, and we're instructed to bind them, right, it shall be bound as a sign, we could think that, well, if our eyes and our hands aren't bound in the V'ahavta, well, then more likely than not, they will stumble. And you explain that way better than I can in the Heart of the Matter, but this concept that has completely wrap ourselves in that, because if we don't, it's easy for us to do what we want to do instead of what he wants to do.
Amen. Did they not teach you that in Schechter? No. David went to a Jewish yeshiva when he was younger, and I was like, they didn't teach you that there? Look, the bottom line with this is, don't forget, when I talk about the eye, the hands, the foot, as he was bringing out the V'ahavta, it doesn't mean that you never had that problem. Some of you really had a hand problem or a foot problem. In other words, the things you did or where you were walking or how you saw the world or what you were looking at or whatever. But you can overcome these things. So they maybe have caused you to stumble before, but every day and every moment is a chance to then change, to shuvah, to make a turnaround in your life and get back on the path. Maybe you've never been on the path, so turn around and get on the path. Whichever way it is, but you're turning around and not continuing going down the same path, expecting a different result, which is really kind of a definition of crazy, right? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. You're not going to get a different result. I'm not likely to throw this phone this way and have it land over here. But if I keep doing that and keep doing it, thinking, well, one of these times it's going to land over here. No, it's not. I have to turn and throw it this way. Then it'll land over here. But you're like, that's what you like. You're like a bunch of people going, no, I'm going to keep throwing it and hit the target over here. Well, you keep doing that and tell me how that works. Because it's not going to work. All right, Steve.
Hi. Doesn't this connect, like David said, with the heart of the matter as far as putting ourselves on the throne? In order to do that, don't we have to get the heart and the mind back in sync? And because our heart and our minds are fighting each other over our desires, so how do we handle making that all work?
How do you handle that? go back and redo 64 teachings. I couldn't help that. That was true, actually, is what it was. It was true. Just go back and do that. No. But that's why the what are you thinking teaching is so important. That's why the walk humbly teaching is so important. That's why the endure teaching is so important, and the heart teaching. It's all understanding that there's a struggle in these disconnects that we have. We got needs, wants disconnects. We got heart and emotional with our thought process disconnects. We've got all kinds of disconnects. And so Abba's trying to reconnect everything the way it was originally designed. Okay, we are not set at the moment to factory specs. Okay, we need a factory reset. And so thank you, Steve. That is absolutely a big struggle with us, is the emotional part makes it really hard for us to get off the throne. Or the emotional part makes it hard for us to kick somebody else off of it because we're afraid of them, or we respect them, or we love them, and we let them sit on the throne. Not as Elohim, but just as having authority in your life. The throne is a symbol of authority in your life. So we're not talking about paganism here necessarily, but you're letting somebody sit on that throne at all times. Every decision is being made by whoever's sitting on that throne. So if you make a decision, whoever influenced that decision the most, that's who is on the throne. Is that clear? When you make a decision, you're making the decision, but don't think just because you made the decision that you're the one on the throne. Who influenced that? You? Him? Your boss? Your mother? Your cousin? Your sister? Your brother? Who was the influencer of that decision? That's who's sitting on the throne. Okay, who's got the mic? Okay, Liam.
Hey, just a comment. What you said earlier about the salt. It's interesting that in the Middle East today, there's an expression, is there salt between us? And it's said throughout the Levant, where they would have salt on a table, meaning that it was like peace. It was like there's shalom between us. So it's very interesting what you said about the idioms. Also, in regard to the threshold covenant, we have a term used today, or we see it in Hollywood, the red carpet treatment. Well, back then, they would slaughter an animal in the threshold of the doorway. Like I would see your family coming from far off, and I would say, to honor the Berkson family, I'm going to get my choice calf and slaughter it. And they would slaughter it right in the threshold. And the blood would fall to the floor there, and it would create a puddle of blood, and they would got the term red carpet, or, because of the blood in front of the doorway. So that today...
So these are cultural, idiomatic things that you wouldn't know unless you knew.
Exactly. So unless you study and read these things, or you come from that region of the country,
sure,
you're not going to know these things.
Awesome. Thank you, Liam. Appreciate that. Okay, and all of you who come from wherever you come from have things like that you could share. Things that another culture would just like, because people will ask you, and you're like, well, I can't really explain because you're not going to understand, because you have to be from there to get it. Okay? Like you've got to be from the South to understand that hair has 2 syllables. My hair. See, I mean, you just have to, that's a joke, sorry. My daughter came back from her first couple of days in school, when we had her in public school. We moved to Tennessee, and she said, where's my hairbrush? I said, your what? Hair is 1 syllable. Well, not in the South, it isn't. Just one of those things I had to learn when I moved into the South. What can I do? Go ahead.
I've noticed in my experiences in the Orthodox, and among other things, that for them especially, every meal is covenant. It's a covenant action. You're breaking bread with someone. That is a covenant, period, regardless. And also it's expressed as well from the side of what happened with Midian and Moab when they seduced and drew out the men of Israel to go to the celebrations, the feasts of their gods, without them necessarily knowing that they were connected with their gods. But they went and they ate, and they were in covenant with that God. And the same thing is true to a certain extent, like say with an Easter meal or a Christmas meal to this day. I've heard people say, well, I'm not going there to be with the presents or the tree or anything else, even though that's present. I'm just having the meal with my family. Well, I'm sorry, it's the day of that. It's that meal associated with that. You can't get away from making a covenant with whatever's connected to that.
They're spinning, right? Everything's being spinning. Sorry, that's just a Hebrew dreidel song. But anyway, so that's the problem, is that everybody wants to spin things. You know what it is. Well, really, no, it's really not Christmas dinner. Come on. That's what it was all of your life until you started learning this, and now you're changing it. You know what it is. And you know you can't be involved in that. Now, you know that. That doesn't mean you're actually acting upon what you know, but you know. But that's where that disconnect struggle starts to come about.
Just connecting some dots for any of you who are going to be participating in the mikvah, and so that you can help see how this is applying to what you're doing. You're going to hear about burying the old man, and today we heard about if it causes you to stumble, cut it off. Okay? And so I want to help you connect the dots between what Yeshua was saying about if this or that causes you to stumble, cut it off, and the realization that it's your whole person that causes you to stumble. And so that is why in the mikveh, we cut off the whole person. We bury the old man, and that's why it's talked about in Colossians as it being a cutting off of the whole flesh. And so you can take what you're hearing today and tie that in together and have a more enriched experience because of it.
Amen. Thank you. And also, by the way, what I always say is cut it out or cut it off is what Actually, I don't know about always, but I think I said it in Focus like last week. But anyway, but it's good to have Raymond in the room because I know that usually he's in the Gadol class teaching. And so since he's not doing that at this point, since he's still helping to take care of a brand new baby and a wife who's just had a brand new baby, so it's good to have you in the teaching part at Sukkot, because normally by this point, you've not been available to do these things because you've been handling the children. So that's really good to see you back there. And that's a good connection. Look, we are doing when we do the mikvah, it is a covenantal type of action. It's a covenantal thing that you're doing. And that's why you're making declarations, commitments. Remember, we talk about covenant is agreeing between two involving specified do's and don'ts, things that will be done or not. And that's why when the 8 declarations, what are you saying? That I'm renouncing this, giving up that, taking upon these responsibilities, and now doing this. And I'm going to walk out my life in such a way as to bring the names of Yahweh and Yeshua glory and honor and not shame, and all these things. You're making these covenantal things.
I just wanted to say that most of my life I was that person that had somebody else sitting on the throne. I thought that was the way life was until I grew up. But I didn't grow up until I put Yahweh on the throne. And then I started to grow up. And then I realized you can grow up at any time in your walk, but you have to realize what's happening to you. Who has put that stuff in you that you've allowed them, to control you to the point where you can't make your own life. But Yahweh can give you a new life. And he has done that for me.
Amen.
In fact, he said to me not too long ago, which is why I'm going to mikvah tomorrow, that I am a new creation.
Amen. Amen. All right. Okay, we got a hand in the back on the left there.
It's like you said, Rabbi, we really don't know a lot. And it's about working out our salvation with fear and trembling and constantly analysing it with an upward motion and with humility. That's all I want to say.
I appreciate that. Is there a different temperature in the room than up here? Because you guys all have jackets on and sweaters, and it feels good. I don't... Oh, the lights are giving... No, those lights aren't giving up very much heat at all. No. I just noticed Dale got up in his jacket and stuff. Because after all, winter is over where you are, Dale. I mean, it's going into spring now. Oh, you've been running around, okay. Because down under, they got the reverse kind of seasons from us. Okay, so where we got, who's next? Robert? Nope. All right, we're good. Be encouraged, be motivated. Don't be discouraged. All of this stuff is out there, not to just smack your toes, but to teach you to maybe move your foot next time. Be motivated that, there's a way to avoid these things and not be just always thinking, well, I'm never going to make it. He would never start, he says in the verses that I start a thing in you that I'm going to complete. If you don't quit, if you don't give up, if you persevere. To he who overcomes to the end shall be saved, right? So you have to overcome to the end. Don't quit. Keep going, keep going, keep going, and you'll get there. Oh, because you got